So broken access control is one of the most common vulnerabilities that even we find in our pen test, and no wonder it is actually named. It holds the first rank in even the OWASP top 10. That is a open source web application security project, and there's a good reason. So I can completely second that fact, is because even in my pen test, I must say our pen test, there are a lot of times that we have seen access controls to be more common than injection attacks.
Yes.
So that was all the hype about broken access control. So you can look at the slide, you can see that there's Tom who is trying to hold the door with all of his might, but Jerry's like all jacked up and he's like just breaking the whole door. So here, if I relate this to a web application, what is happening is the weak access controls are the doors, which probably the developers are hoping that it's a very good mechanism, but pen testers or attackers are completely breaking it through. Yes. So a real life example can be as simple. I really love to explain by giving examples as well. So just to be with me for a sec. So let's say that you have a beautiful house and everything's good, but at the back there's a window that's broken. Okay. Now that's the problem. Now what's going to happen is that the broken window implies that the access control, again, read through, because I am closely trying to relate a real life example with our web applications. Yeah. So the broken window implies that the access control of the house is weak. There are 3 points of contacts, that is the attacker, the victim, and the vulnerable point. So again, the vulnerable point becomes the broken window, the victim becomes your house, and the attacker is obviously the robber or the burglar.
Yeah, can you show this in a real world web application scenario? Like what are the scenarios that you have come across like while testing in a web application?
Okay, so in web applications, broken access controls means accessing, its basic definition, unauthorized users are able to access data that they are not authorized to. Coming to our question again, it's like, accessing administrator functionalities, like creating users, managing users, deleting users, creating comments as an administrator, and a number of functionalities. That is what I have personally came across, and I'm pretty sure a lot of pen testers have done as well. Yeah. So again, we are diving deep into the explanation of the web application perspective. If you look at the diagram, you can see that in a normal case scenario with good access controls being implemented, an unauthorized users would really not be able to gain access to the data. But in case of weak access controls, the unauthorized user is basically granted the access to the, you can call it a data or anything like that. Don't worry, things like this will be more clearer when we come to the practical sides of things. But again, there are a lot of people have this question. When you're a consumer, you have this question, okay, all of these vulnerabilities are going on, but what kind of impact does it have? Yeah. So one tip that I would like to lay out is, because all of the things are being digitalized right now. Yeah. A lot of our information is on the web apps, it's on Android, or our phones, all of this stuff. So we need to secure it. And access control, if an attacker basically gets into a web application as an authorized user, he can fiddle around with your data. A good example would be the Domino's data breach as well that happened, where a number of people's data was leaked, and these guys, they put it on dark web as well, and you are actually able to access that site and check if your account information was leaked or not. Moving on to some real-time scenarios to give you an example as well. A bank customer views another customer's account details by manipulating the URL. A regular user edits or comments these were some examples I laid out before as well. Yeah. They can comment on a post by intercepting a modified network request that was meant for administrators. An attacker can access web applications by making use of common word lists. This was something that was covered in brute forcing. An attacker is capable of performing administrative functionalities like creating and managing user accounts. So I think all of this stuff, I covered it back, but still fine. You can have a read through again. So this is a small example before we go to the practical side of things. Demonstration. So a bank customer is viewing another customer's account details by manipulating the URL. So as you can see that the name of the website is vulnerable bank, and it shows you the account details of the user Mike. So The attacker is like, okay, I already have this user account, but I want to check the account details of other users. So what he's going to see, he's going to enter the name John, because it's maybe the attacker, I mean, we are assuming a scenario where the attacker is targeting the user John. So he enters his name in the URL, he presses enter, and now you can actually see that he's able to access the account details of the user John instead of Mike. So basically, it's like the access control is compromised. Now, why is this happening? If you ask me, probably the web application is not, checking the cookies or the user sessions that has been for the specific user. So even if let's say the attacker has compromised Mike's account, but he's still able to view John's account, is because the session IDs or his cookies are not being checked by the web application in a way that was intended.
Yeah.
This is again another scenario where a regular user edits or comments on a post by intercepting. I think you can walk through this as well if you want.
Yeah. So in this particular example, what we are trying to demonstrate is the access control is implemented on the client side, that is the browser or the web application HTML interface. So what we typically do is we intercept that particular request, okay? And and in the request we manipulate that parameter to some other user, okay? So to post this particular comment as some other user and forward the request. So what this does is basically we are able to post a particular comment or do a particular functionality as some other user. As you can see in the slides itself, we will be demonstrating it in the practicals as well. Yeah. So can we move on to the practical part?
Surely. Before moving on to the practical demonstration, 1 second I would like to give you the disclaimer that Redfox Security does not hold any responsibility for if you get into trouble, because all of these things are mentioned for educational purposes. Please do not try this at your home, work, organization or anywhere else, because if you get in trouble, we are not responsible for that. So please keep this in mind, be ethical. Yeah. Beware and be ethical. So, okay, I will just brief you out to the practical again. So here was our logged in user, that is Aaron, which is the normal user. You can see if you navigate to the profile, and if you go to the incognito window, again I had given a brief about this. That's just fine. Yeah. So we are going to log in into the administrator user account. So now again, I would like to hint on the fact that we are going to learn all of these vulnerabilities with a pen testing perspective in mind. So let's say you have both of these users. Just a sec. You can copy the password, or I think I would go with the traditional way of doing it all by myself. Yes. We move to the administrator profile. Okay, so access control, broken access control, what you're going to do is, if you have good observation skills, you can see that administrator user has the ability to create users as well as manage users.
Yeah.
And yeah, but if you move to the normal account, which was Aaron, he was not actually able to create users or manage users in the web application. So what's going to happen is that if you click create user, you can check the endpoint as well. That is create user. Okay. So if you check the endpoint, what's going to happen? The normal way to go for broken access control is that what you can do is you can copy this URL and you can paste it in the session of the normal user, logged in user. Now you can see that actually the normal user was able to access the create user functionality by just manipulating the URL.
Yeah.
And that guy was not authorized to do that.
Sometimes only the UI part is only accessible to the particular user. Yeah. Sometimes the functionality might not work. So you will have to test the APIs being called in the backend as well as the dashboard, which is displayed on the, when you paste that particular URL parameter. Yeah.
Yep. I would like to add one point here as well. So what he is saying is actually right. So it's like you can, the access control part is not really finished here. So there might be cases in your pen test as well where you can come across engagements or pen test, where you are actually able to access the functionality, but you are not really able to exploit it in any way. Execute it. Yeah. Like, let's say now we are going, but in this case, obviously you're going to execute it again. So we were able to access the administrator create user endpoint. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new account. Let's say attacker77@gmail.com. I'm so sorry about that. That was the username part of things. So you can enter in the email, a random email, set the password, and you can actually, that is where things go haywire. I mean, dangerous. Things become dangerous because you can actually, you access the endpoint, and as a normal user, you are able to create an administrator account on the web application. Let me just upload a file because it's necessary. Yep, I just added a test file as well, and I think we are good to go. If I click on submit, you can see that the attacker has been created successfully. Now what we are going to do is, the user is created as administrator. We are going to log back in as the newly set account with the creds that we just set right now. And you can see that you are now able to access the admin panel. Yeah. And if you click on manage user, and you can now create users like before, and now if you click on manage user, you get the whole data of all the users in the application, right from their emails, their names. You can delete a user, you can reset the password, and as easy as it sounds and as easy the demonstration really feels, that is something that I have came across a lot of times in my pen test, and no wonder I don't debate the fact that even OWASP has it on their first rank.
Yeah, it is the most critical vulnerability. The reason for that is it is really easy to exploit. There is no particular sophisticated tools that are used or payloads that are used that are sophisticated. It's just a simple parameter manipulation or URL manipulation that you can get a privilege escalation or a account takeover vulnerability, and we can exploit that.
Yes, that, as he rightly said, this was a case of a privilege escalation via broken access control, because we started off as a normal user, ended up as an administrator user in the application. So let me just log out of this and log back in as, we'll just do it ahead, no problem. Before we actually jump into the IDOR, let me just give the viewers a small, how to mitigate this vulnerability as well. So, first of all, what you need to do is you have to implement role-based access controls. So, in brief, it's basically like only the users that are authorized to access the particular resource, only those should be able to do it. Secondly, you can see that there are authorization and authentication checks as well. So, this can be a case, let's say, even if a person is able to access that URL, the server should be, configured in a way where it is still checking the user session or the user cookie. And now it's like, hey, this guy is trying to access this URL, but is he really configured to, access it?
Is he really going to execute that particular request?
Yeah. So that's it. It's very simple, like the mitigations as well.